Running our own business isn't easy, and it can be a tough gig for all of us at times, and only other business owners truly understand the challenges that we face. And on ScaleUp Radio, we aim to help make things just that little bit easier by interviewing guests who have been where you are now, regardless of where you are on the scale-up journey, and maybe facing some of the challenges that you are facing. And they offer their thoughts and advice on what has worked well for them, as well as what didn't, of course. And we've also combined many of these lessons into a practical scale-up handbook called the Entrepreneurial Scale-Up System. And there's details of this at the end of the episode. So welcome to ScaleUp Radio. Welcome to one of our themed episodes of ScaleUp Radio, and the theme this month is around measurement and knowing our numbers. But it's not just measuring for measurement's sake. We want to make sure that our focus is really on measuring what matters. And we all know that we should be keeping a close eye on our business performance, but what should we be measuring, and how do we strike the right balance between getting bogged down in measuring everything or measuring not enough? And in this episode, Granger introduces the concept of the Balanced Scorecard, why you need it and how to get your head around it. And we also introduce you to what has been referred to as the most important diagram in the world. So we hear also from a guest speaker, Lisa Murphy of Limelite HR, who explores the challenging area of getting your people measures right. So as you listen through, try to relate back to your business and identify at least one thing that you will implement to improve measurement in your business. So enjoy this episode and listen here.
This month we're looking at measuring what matters and this concept of the balanced scorecard. But it's not about measuring just for measurement's sake. We want to make sure that our focus is on measuring what matters. We all know that we should be keeping a close eye on our business performance, but what should we be measuring? How do we strike that balance between getting bogged down into measuring everything and not measuring enough? And we often hear about this thing, which is what gets measured gets done. So we're going to introduce you to the concept of the balanced scorecard, why you need it, how to get your head around it. We also introduce you to what we call the most important diagram in the world. So first of all, my question as I pause for a moment, what is the purpose of measurement? Why would you want to measure in your business? Maybe just think about that and reflect on as we go through the rest of this presentation. So let me introduce to what, after 25 years in business, for me, is what I call the most important diagram in the world. And it starts with the thing, okay? Everything in life we can define, okay? So I could measure myself, my health, my weight, what I eat, my friendships, my exercise, my wealth. For my business, I could measure turnover, sales, customer satisfaction, profit, productivity, employee satisfaction. For people, I could measure income, leadership, delivery results, energy, how they're feeling satisfied. So the first important thing to realize is we need to define the thing that we need to, and then before we think about measuring. Without this first step, you can't really move forwards. And often we can be told, but you can't measure this thing that I'm talking about. But until you can think about that and decide how you're going to do that, you'll never move forwards. The next step is the today. When you've defined the thing, you must now understand where you are today. And this is really important. We need to truly understand what's going on. It's time to stop. It's time to review. It's time to reflect and start to measure it. Gather facts, gather details of what's really happening. It's really important to maybe go to the place to understand what's going on. To truly understand the thing today, the better you can do that, the better you'll be able to move forwards. And from our experience, lots of people will make a statement and just move on to the next stage. However, this is probably one of the key mistakes we make when we're thinking about measurement. You must spend the time to really understand what's happening today, go see, understand, and get involved. And we have a phrase, a poem that we use in Bismarck, which is, I have 6 honest serving men. They taught me all I knew. Their what, why, when, and how, where, and who, by Roger R. Kipling. So really do that analysis and that thinking. Next, the tomorrow. Now we understand today, we can define the tomorrow or our target. Where do we want to go to? What do we want to achieve? And then one of the things here to think about is our stretch. Only by stretching beyond our current level of understanding do we truly find that excitement and that opportunity for growth. This step is often called the scientific method, where we create the idea of tomorrow. And this is our hypothesis, our idea, our stretch, where we want to do. We don't know if we can do this. We don't know if we can truly achieve it from where we are today, but only by trying to go beyond what we know today do we find the tomorrow. And it's a big step. It's a scary step, but fundamentally it's important to life. In my opinion, mankind we rose from the apes because we could envisage a future and then we could take the actions to try to get there. So what I'm saying is be curious. And then the opportunity, and the difference between the today and tomorrow is the opportunity, sometimes called the gap, or what we need to overcome. And this is now the most exciting part of the diagram. Now it's time to experiment. If we've truly understood the today and defined the tomorrow, we can understand where we are today. That's where the excitement and the opportunity comes. And the word experiment is the key step. From experience, if we make a plan and everything goes along and then we fail, we blame the plan. However, if we see it's an experiment, it's about a learning opportunity, about growing, we develop our knowledge. And as we learn through the experiments, we achieve our tomorrow. We find what works and what does not. And this allows more experiments until we achieve our tomorrow. And this is the true learning and the opportunity that exists when you think about measurement. So I asked you before, what is the purpose of measurement? Yeah, so hopefully you can start to see that it's not just the purpose of hitting a target. It's also the process that you're going through to develop those experiments, to create that learning, to develop that opportunity as you move forwards. So what I'd like to do now is introduce you to the Balanced Scorecard, which was originally developed by Dr. Robert Kaplan at Harvard University and Dr. David Norton, the founder and director of Paradigm Group 88, as a framework for measuring organizational performance using a more balanced set of performance measures. Traditionally, companies use only short-term financial measures for success. The Balanced Scorecard added additional non-financial strategic measures in order to get a mix, in order to get that better focus on long-term success. And we've developed and evolved our own version of the Balanced Scorecard to address some of the findings from our research and working with leaders in small and medium-sized businesses that are looking to scale. And the 9 areas that we asked to consider is financial performance, is around people and the team. It's about marketing and lead generation. It's about operations or production. It's about sales. It's about stability, value growth, business admin, continual improvement, and customers. And our scorecard has these balanced around the outside. And in the middle there is the 1-year critical path, or our core purpose, what we're trying to do. So the easy way to think about project measures is to ask yourself for each of these 9 areas, how do we know if we are where we want to be in this area? What is good look like? How would we know when we've got there? So we need to have in our mind where we're headed, hence why it's in the middle, the priorities and the critical paths for the business. And note that it's really about grouping our thoughts around that and taking forwards with a handful of measures that really help to focus and take us there. This is really important. It's a standalone system. What we don't do is we don't connect these to other systems. We don't automate the collection of data and pump it into the scorecard to draw things. The idea here is we want you to actually really take ownership of those numbers, understand the numbers that you've taken ownership for, drill down into the data, find out what's going on, and then report. And from our experience, if you do this, you get that better interaction, that better growth, understanding the opportunities to take those numbers forwards. And that's why we don't look at automating recording systems. We ask you to really reflect and to think and to take ownership of your numbers. So how do you actually select? What are the key things that you would want to do this? So we have a 7-step method that'll help you through, and we will put later on in the chat this document to help you, but I'll just take you through it now. The first thing is, okay, what are the critical paths of the year? So let's lay out the critical paths for the year in our first column. Next, we look at the thing and where do those exist within the Balanced Scorecard. So we challenge you, try and think about 3 different measures. Try and map those against the Balanced Scorecard and make yourself really think about it. Don't just pick the first measure that comes to mind. Look at those other opportunities of measuring it different ways and to get a rich mix across that whole Balanced Scorecard. Then the today, go look, see, find out where are you today? What are you actually achieving against those different measures? And then the tomorrow, where do you want it to be? What could the result be? What's the stretch going to be? How are we going to take it forwards? And then the gap. Okay, so in each one of those areas, what are the things that we could do? What are the experiments, the changes, the business improvements that we need to make that would close that gap and to help us drive forwards? And finally, which one? Which one are we going to focus on? Because we ask you to challenge maybe 3, but you don't need to pick them all. We're not about measurement for measurement's sake. It's not hundreds of measures. It's time to pick the key one. But through this process, you're challenging yourself to think and come up with alternatives and interesting ways of measuring an outcome. So in conclusion, the process now of selecting those measures will now take you forward into the most important part, which is your Smart 30 meeting, your Smart 90 meeting, your Smart 365, those rhythm meetings that take place to track the progress, to report on what's happening, and then to adjust as necessary as you move forwards. The key thing always is to have one person, the owner, one person that's accountable for monitoring and reporting on that within those meetings. Well, that's enough from me. Hopefully I haven't bamboozled your thoughts around that. But what we'll do now is Lisa Murphy from Limelite HR is going to give us some thoughts around measurement of people within businesses, because from our findings, only about 4% of measures are normally around people, yet we value people and the structure of it. So what are the types of things that we could think about and do?
Hi, everyone. Nice to see you. I think you sold us short, Granger, by saying right at the start that the group coaching was the really exciting bit of the session today. So at least I feel like I haven't got much to live up to, so it's fine. Okay, I've got just a short presentation. It's only 10 minutes. So I'm Lisa Murphy. My business is Limelite HR and Learning. I'm about 3 years in, and we focus on HR consultancy, HR projects, and leadership development. So we do kind of look at a number of different kind of people measurements and metrics in all of those different areas. I'm the CEO of Limelite HR and Learning. I'm also a podcast host as well, like you guys. I've got the HR Director's Cut podcast. And then I'm the chair of the CIPD for Hereford and Worcester as well. So I wear a few different hats, which hopefully give me a little bit of insight into this area. Covering a couple of bits that you've kind of already covered here, but what gets measured gets done. Very famous saying there from Peter Drucker. Lots of research pretty much says that if you don't measure something, it's far less likely to get done. If you write something down, if you set some goals, it's 83% more likely to happen. So getting used to measuring different things and tracking different things is absolutely fundamental. I think we all know that because we all come to the ScaleUp Club and we all use the software, and that's exactly what it's designed for. But when it comes to people, if you look at somebody like Jack Welch, who was CEO of GE in America, lots of research done on him. He attributed the success that he had with GE to enabling employees to pull in the same direction. And that was 250,000 employees that he managed to get to pull in the same direction, and getting the best out of their individual abilities while he was doing that. If you look at people like Henry Ford, he said coming together is a beginning. So, we all might have had startup companies. We've come together. We've got some people in there. Keeping together is progress, and working together is success. So people are the competitive advantage for your business, no matter what size. If you've just got one employee like me, if you're working towards 50, the thing that might set you aside from your competitors is the people that you've got. If you've got good people, that's going to enable you to be better than your competition. So if you're in accountancy and you're up against other accountancies, it may be the people that they choose to come to you for. It's essential for growth. If you don't have the right people, it's going to be very difficult to grow your business. When you're small and you're innovative and you're evolving, having the right people can mean that you can jump onto different things that you didn't think that you were going to do in your business. So it can really shape how your business develops. So why do so few small businesses monitor KPIs and measures around people? I think one of the reasons is that some people measurements are quite intangible. So we'll go through this in a little bit, but some people measurements are quite easy. They're quite factual, they're statistical, they're quantitative, but a lot of what it's to do with people is unpredictable, intangible. It's about how people feel. So it's a bit more warm and fluffy, sometimes harder to put into kind of data, metrics and analytics. When we're talking about measuring people metrics, there's many advantages that can come with that. One of the things that we do at Limelite is we do culture surveys quite often, and it's something we've seen a lot more of this year. So that will be where a company wants us to go in and undertake not just a survey that's sent out to everybody like a culture survey, like an engagement survey, but we'll actually go and meet with people and we'll talk to people and we'll say, how do you feel? What's going on? We might do a 360 where they fill out a number of questions about leaders, and then we might talk to leaders and talk about what the results of those 360s mean. So it's more than just kind of sending the survey out. It's actually interpreting that, finding out about the story and seeing how people feel about things. That's probably the difference, I think, when it comes to measuring people. So you can get a temperature check on company health. One example was a not-for-profit professional body that we worked with. They noticed that they were losing a lot of staff. They were only small, I think probably 30 staff, and they were losing a lot of staff. Their turnover was very high, and they really wanted to get to the bottom of why that was, because it was costing them a lot to consistently re-recruit. So we did this exercise where we surveyed everybody. We went and had some listening groups. We pulled it all together. And actually, we found that one person was in charge of managing most of that organisation. And that one person was micromanaging, controlling, some kind of bad practice going on there. And people just didn't enjoy the culture. And what we found out was that over 60% of people were looking for a new job. So, huge risk to that company. So having that temperature check on your company health can be critical. You can reveal trends and patterns, so it can give you that strategic overview. You can step out from the trees, step up on the balcony, look down at the dance floor and see some trends, patterns, stories. Sometimes I think when we're working very fast and we're very busy in these kind of startup environments we're in, we don't necessarily look for some perspective and say, actually, how have we changed? How have we grown? What's happened here? So that can be really helpful. You can spot trouble, even if that's trouble just with one person, you can intervene a lot more quickly, and you can adjust goals if things are starting to kind of drift. You've got a bit of strategic drift going on, or, people have started to drift with the job that you wanted them to do, that you first brought them in to do. You can start adjusting things a little bit more quickly. And then it can show progress and also what's working well. So you can have that lovely chance to kind of celebrate, what's going really well, which I think most of us don't probably do enough. So ideally, you'll have your mission while you exist. You'll have your values, what you believe in, how you behave. You can have a vision. What does it look like when you've achieved what you want to? What do you want to be? You'll have your strategy, and that leads to your balanced scorecard. So whenever you're thinking about people measures or any measures, it's got to bring it back to this point. Those measures have got to kind of come right from that strategy and be that golden thread that runs through the organisation, because you can measure many numbers of things, and identifying the ones that are priority, it's probably here is where you're going to look for those. Lots of organisations work on an OGSM model, which I'm not sure if you've seen this before, but quite simply, it's looking at your objectives. So they'll come from your strategy, looking at the goals, looking at strategies that are going to help you deliver those, and then that's where the measures come out. So again, if you're looking for measures around your people, look at your strategy. What are your strategic objectives? What are the goals around there? What are the strategies? And then that will give you the measures. I always like thinking about health and well-being, which you mentioned earlier with something like this. So your objective might be to be healthier. Your goal might be to lose weight. Your strategy might be to eat less calories every day or go to the gym. And your measures are going to be what calories did you eat and how many times did you hit the gym. So it kind of breaks it down a little bit. And if you're looking for ways to measure your people, that's quite a useful model. So as I said, you can have qualitative and quantitative kind of measurements coming in. Where it comes to people, qualitative usually comes into it far more than it would with other areas like finance, risk. That's what I see. So, you know, more kind of feedback from people, talking to people, listening to people, than necessarily just crunching the numbers. So you might have two different types of measurements that you can look at with people. You might have your hard measures. And when I was head of HR in my last job, these are what I would report to the board each year. These are the trends that we'd look at. So we'd have recruitment costs, turnover, staff utilisation. You know, some of these are still going to be relevant even if you've just got one employee. Management time spent on issues. That's a huge one. We work with loads of small charities and, you know, you get one employee that's, you know, causing a few issues and all the management time is suddenly then sucked up on people issues. Days lost to absence, that's at the highest rate it's been for 10 years at the moment, according to the CIPD. Percentage of your income spent on payroll. So generally, people would be something like 55 to 80%, depending on what sector, of all of your money is spent on people. So, you know, quite funny when you compare that to, you know, what was the metric you came up with? Only 4% of people have people measures. Only 4% of businesses have people measures, you know, compared to 75% of your payroll is spent on people. You know, diversity data, number of promotions, that kind of thing. Where it might be a little bit more relevant and probably the place that needs a little bit more thinking, but is probably a little bit more relevant to your strategy as a smaller business, is the softer measures. So these might be how satisfied are your employees. You know, if you've got a very satisfied, very engaged employee, you're going to be getting 100%, if not more, of their energy. You know, if you've got an employee that's not very satisfied, that might drop to 50%, whether they're in the office or not, whether they're working or not. The effort that they're putting in is so much lower. So employee satisfaction, their intention to stay with you. So ideally, you don't want any surprises. You don't want to suddenly find out that, you know, the people you've got are mass exodus. Your net promoter score. So would they recommend your business as somewhere to work to their friends and family? Their engagement to the mission. Their involvement. So how much say do they have in your business? How involved are they in decisions? How much do they, you know, are able to influence their own place in the organisation? Time spent with management might be a metric. Kevin and I were talking about this, and, you know, when you're filling out your Smart 90 software, you know, what is it that you're going to measure? Time spent with management might be that thing that gives you that temperature check. Learning mindset and adaptability. So I've always gone for an approach of people having self-directed learning, especially with the culture we live in, with so much ability to learn on social media. You know, self-directed learning should be a real kind of priority for most businesses, because that leads to people being adaptable. And as a small business, you really want high adaptability, because you may pivot, you may change, you may grow, you may evolve. So I've always set targets around learning and making sure that people are, you know, self-directed in their approach to that, really. So top tips, any measures that you're having with your people, align them to your priorities. There's loads of things there that you could measure. Choose a couple that are really aligned to what you want to achieve, you know, in the next 90 days or whatever timescale you're looking at. Review the measures regularly to ensure that they're relevant, because some measures, you know, they're relevant at one point and then they disappear. Look more for trends in the story when it comes to people. You know, a cold, hard statistic doesn't tell the story with people. You know, link it to other things. You know, you can look at lots of different stats there, absence rates, satisfaction, you know, diversity, and you can start telling a story about your culture, you know, and there's the story, there's the narrative, and keep the finger on the pulse of your organisation. So avoid surprises.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. That was really insightful and some great thoughts there. As we always do, we'll open up for questions. Any questions for what Lisa's taken us through?
Yeah, hi Lisa. Quick question: what happened to the company where they realised all their staff were walking out the door? How did you turn it around?
They had an inkling that this director was causing a few issues, and it's one reason why they appointed us to do the culture survey, and it gave them the fodder that they needed to exit that employee. But also, it was a little bit unfair. It was the employee and some of their issues, but actually the organisational structure wasn't right. They'd put that person managing way too many people, and they needed to split it. So, we worked with them to do a whole kind of process where we exited that employee, restructured the organisation so it was a little bit more kind of split, and then set up some employee voice groups so that they had constant feedback loops, rather than having to kind of get in as an intervention.
Oh, sounds like you earned your money there. There you go. Thank you.
We always do earn our money in HR, if I'm honest.
Thank you, girls. Great question. Anybody else? Steve, Harris?
One of my questions was around, you mentioned about the employee review and how you can get toxic employees out or see how motivated they are. How honest do you find they are during that process when they answer the questions that you ask?
With the kind of culture survey?
Yes. Right. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it depends how you set it up. So sending out an employee engagement survey, I think people still can be a little bit political with it. I feel like when you get people together in a group, they can be a little bit more honest, because once they see one person sharing, they kind of all pile in then sometimes. And having a neutral organisation do it as well, they feel quite safe. But you have to get the comms right with things like this. It's like 360s. If they're anonymous, people will be very honest. If it's not an anonymous 360, you probably won't get that great level of honesty. So it just depends how you set it up, really.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Steve. Paul Harris.
Yeah, good afternoon, everybody. My question, Lisa, is around that review process and how often you feel that should take place. I've worked in organisations where they're done annually, and that just seems to me to be too long. You don't want to wait a year to find out that somebody is unhappy. So what's current best practice in terms of how often you should have a review or solicit feedback from your team?
So most organisations, I would say, go for a one-to-one process, which is much more informal, doesn't place the admin burden on people. So a one-to-one process that we'd design, if we were talking about best practice, would be something very quick, very easy and very regular. So it'd probably be a half an hour monthly meeting, with some kind of guided conversation. So maybe 3 things that you'd look at, which is progress against your objectives, behaviour against the company values, and what learning you've undertaken. So just something very quick and easy. And then maybe a little bit of a bigger kind of appraisal process once a year. But appraisals, they're not great because they're so backwards facing. So a lot of organisations have dropped them all together and they'll just go for conversations and not even monitor it. I think that's quite dangerous because some managers like these one-to-ones and they'll prioritise them. Some managers, it's not their bag really. So I'd always say have a formal process, but just make it really quick and easy because they can be so burdensome and then people don't undertake them. It makes them pointless.
Yeah, no, I agree. You can invest so much time and energy on both sides and actually not get out of those meetings what you want to get out of those meetings. So yeah, no, that's great advice. Thank you, Lisa.
Okay. Thanks, Paul.
Brilliant. Well, Lisa, thank you very much for that and the Q&A. A great presentation.
I hope you enjoyed that discussion, and if you're building and scaling your own business, you might well be interested in our book, The Entrepreneurial Scale-Up System. And it's exactly what it says on the tin. It's a practical handbook around scaling a business in a structured way. And you can order a copy on all your favourite online retailers, including an audio version, or you can find it and other supporting resources on our website, www.esusgroup.co.uk. That's esusgroup.co.uk, which is esusgroup.co.uk.
This has been a Monkey Pants Productions podcast.